Welcome to Enlightenment Unknown, Life of a Spiritual Nomad. My name is Wes Coons, and welcome back to the show. Hey, everybody, it's been a while. I know we said it was going to be a couple weeks, and it's been like probably 6. And I also know we were going to do a video podcast starting in episode 3. One of the changes you're going to see is this is a solo show for a little while. Andrea's off working on other projects. She's actually out of the country on vacation right now. And this is going to be the first episode really I've done. I did one when my brother passed away. I don't even really remember doing that one, but I did it. You know, that was more of a healing thing for me, honoring my brother and just going through life. And when we finished episode 2, Andrea and I realized we'd missed some things. But before we get to that point, one, I wanted to say thanks for listening to the show. It's really doing well. We just picked up, who did we pick up? I don't think we had Ukraine last time, so Ukraine's with us. You know, the United States, we're in 38, 39 different cities and states right now. Also, our top listeners are Brazil, Russia, and Belgium. I love Belgium. You know, I was born there, so that's really cool to see that. As a child when I was there, I don't remember anything, but thank you for listening. Thank you for plugging in, and tell a friend. We would love to have more people listen to the show. Reach out on Instagram at enlightenment_unknown, or just look for me at VB Healer. If you follow me on VB Healer, you're going to see some of the programs we have coming up. You'll probably see it there on the Enlightenment Unknown as well. We've got some group healing sessions that we're rolling out. We're trying to get one out for January 1st, working out some details on that. And, we got lots and lots of stuff going on. So we needed to finish the haunted house. I thought it was over. And then when I went back through my notes, as much as I wanted that aspect of the show to be complete, it wasn't complete. But one of the cool things is I came across a friend of mine, and she is going to ghostwrite my book for me. So hopefully any day now I'm going to hear from her. We're going to start working on that. And I seen her at Costco, and she said, "Hey, how's the book coming?" And I'm like, "Girl, I cannot write the book. I cannot." So I did the podcast. There's no way I can go through that story again. It is not in my wheelhouse. And so she is going to step in and help me do that. So I'm really, really excited about that aspect. And so I wanted to talk about when the priest came and worked on the house. Kind of going back to that, I had been living in the KOA for a while. Things were still crawling on me. And I had been asking this priest to come for quite some time. I think at least 6 weeks to 2 months, it feels like, something of that nature. And even though this is work that he did, it seemed like it shocked him when I tell him the stories and stuff. But finally, I harassed him enough, and he got the congregation. There were 6 or 8 people from the church that showed up. And you got to remember, this property was, it was like a shoebox. It was wide and not so deep. It was about an acre. There's a big 4,600 square foot house. To the right side of the house, as you're looking at it, is a custom outside area with a nice pool, had a waterfall. Off to the side of that was my chickens, which, if you remember from the show, one of the reasons I bought that house was for my chickens. I had 6 or 8 chickens, and I snuck into Virginia Beach because we can't have anything that has anything to do with fun in Virginia Beach, you can't do. So I had my chickens there, and then we had this large detached garage. On the other side of that was where my camper was parked, at least when I was able to keep it there. The whole thing was just fucking bizarre. So the priest shows up, and we're all standing out by the pool, and he keeps looking at the swimming pool, and he says, "Son, there's something wrong with the swimming pool. There's something that generated from here that is the cause of this." And that seemed to be a theme, right? And so everybody's surrounding me, and they're doing these prayers, and I'm significantly uncomfortable in my skin. And he starts splashing holy water on me. And when that holy water hit, Yeah, I just remember it was like hot grease, right? It was this hot grease, just is like blistering. It felt like it was blistering my skin, even though it wasn't blistering my skin. And I remember looking at him and saying, Father, I don't understand what's going on. Why does it hurt so much, Father? Why does it hurt so much? And I'm crying, I'm sobbing. And the look on his face scared me. I mean, he looked terrified. So he's doing this. My left side of my body is moving uncontrollably. I'm throwing my arm up in the air. I'm just crawling out of my skin. And I'm like, Father, what is going on? I don't understand. Make it stop. Make it stop. And, finally he stopped splashing the holy water on me. And one of the congregation members wasn't there. And we'd been waiting and waiting. And he said, come on, we're going to go in without him. And Sandra Grace Brooks was there as well. So they looked at Sandra as if she was a witch, she was the devil, and Sandra was the holiest woman I've ever met in my life. She's just absolutely beautiful. I love her. And so we go through the house, and he's saying prayers and doing stuff, and I did not want to be in that house. I did not want to be there. And I remember somebody saying that when you go to do like an exorcism or whatever, actually it was that priest that I went to see earlier at the other Catholic church. He had said, if everybody there isn't holy, or at least if everybody there isn't 100% secure in their faith of God, it's going to be a problem, right? And I'm thinking, well, I'm screwed, bro. I am screwed because I didn't have any faith. I'm still trying to figure this stuff out. So we're going through the house and we're downstairs, and they're got holy water in their hand, and they're painting crosses on all the door jambs with their fingers with the holy water and doing their thing. And the house eerily felt calm. So there was this one guy that used to be a Reiki master, and he's telling me how I used to be a Reiki master and that's devil's work, which it is not. And I'm like, that's cool, man. No problem. Thanks for being here. But me and him kind of like teamed up as we're walking through the house, and the priest wanted to go into the sunroom. And I remember thinking, I didn't want to go in the sunroom. The sunroom was dangerous. And he says, come on, son. I'm like, Father, I don't want to go in the sunroom, man. And he says, come on, let's go in the sunroom. So I think there was like 5 of us in the sunroom. The sunroom was beautiful. It had a lot of my mom's things in there, and it overlooked the water. And it wasn't heated and cooled, but it had this plastic, these plastic windows that you could pull down. So it was really well done, but it wasn't heated and cooled. And so there's this temperature change because it was summertime when you go in there, so it was a little warm. And the priest was sitting there talking to somebody, and I was talking to this guy, and all of a sudden I seen something running at me, and it hits me in the chest and lifts me off the ground backwards at a 45-degree angle, and my head almost hits the ceiling. I mean, it is a physical impossibility for me to have jumped like that. And the priest looks, he said, what just happened? And the guy I was talking to, his eyes were like as big as watermelons. And he looks at the priest and said, he just got pushed backwards up to the ceiling. And I looked at him and said, I fucking told you. I told you guys this place was fucked up. And I think the priest finally is like really catching on how bad this place was. So, yeah, that terrified me. I mean, that's the first time they've really hit me. Now, I've had scratches on my body. I've woken up with scratches. I've woken up with bite marks. I would lift my shirt. Remember, Ty was talking about how I'd lift my shirt and you could see faces like pushing out of my skin. I had forgotten about that. That really, when Ty came and did that episode with me, that really screwed me up. I'd forgotten about that. I'd forgotten about how painful some of that stuff was. And this just set me backwards. And so they finished doing whatever they're doing. They didn't do anything special with that. And I started kind of questioning. I'm like, when's the hell and brimstone going to happen? Because none of that was happening. So we go through the kitchen and we did some stuff. And finally we get upstairs and we had this pulled down ladder to go in the attic, right? And the father goes, "Hey, let's open that. I'm gonna go up there." Well, there was a life-size Santa Claus in the attic. So when you pulled the damn thing down and we turned the light on, I thought the priest was gonna have a fucking heart attack. It scared all of us. I forgot it was there. So you see this giant figure standing in the attic staring at us, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I thought that was something there." So that was kind of comical, even though I was absolutely terrified being in the house, and more than anything is like the deeper in the house I went, I felt like you're almost like you're going into this cave that you might not get out of, even with all these people here. And at this point, there was probably 7 or 8 people, I guess. So some other people showed up. But this one guy was an attorney. And when he showed up, he was acting weird and he smelled like death. He smelled like rotten flesh. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget when he came up and started talking to me, I had to take a step back, and he was bizarre feeling. And so he wanders off. So he showed up super late, like a half hour to an hour late. And then he's like down the hallway. He didn't stand near me. And I whispered to Sandra Grace, "He smells like death." And he turned. Now this hallway, you got to remember, this is a big house. So he was at least 20, 25 feet away. There's no way he could have heard that. So it wasn't him hearing it and turning real quick. It was the demon that was inside of him, because I am convinced this guy has a demon in him. And as we're standing there, they all go into, what was that? That one room, that balcony area. If you recall, I had converted that into a custom closet for the girl that I was living with. So it was beautiful. It was well done. It was really pretty. It had the double doors. And the double doors, as they closed, were frosted a little bit, and they had like vines going through it. So it almost looked like a tree. It was beautiful to look at. But there were so many times that I would go up and look at that when the house was being bizarre, and you'd look through the glass. And when you look through the glass, you weren't seeing in that closet. You were looking in this demonic looking forest. It was so incredibly crazy. And we had the same instance when Sandra Grace was downstairs with Linda and Kathleen. They went into the sunroom one night. I didn't go. I wasn't going in there. I'm like, fuck that. I'm not going in that room. And they closed the door. I don't know what was going on the other side of that door, because when I looked through the glass, they weren't there. And they never did tell me what they seen. So, Linda, if you're listening to the show, and I know you are, you're going to have to tell me what you've seen. But when I looked through the glass, there was a forest on that side too. It was like, there was no growth or anything on the ground. So it was like dirt. And the trees were all dead and black, but they weren't like falling down. It's like they grew that way with no leaves, no nothing. It was just really, really eerie. And so we're up there and they're going in that room. The lady that was going to ministry school was standing next to me. And there was this weird energy between us. It was freaking bizarre. She reaches over and she puts her hand on my shoulder and she starts to rub her hand from the top of my shoulder down my back. And I'm like, that's awkward for somebody going to ministry school and who's married. And I started to pay attention. The attorney was bizarre. I was uncomfortable as shit, and she started to act differently. And I remembered what that priest said. If you weren't solid in your foundation, you're going to be manipulated and it's not going to work. And not disrespecting this wonderful, wonderful person, but it was bizarre. It wasn't her putting her hand on my shoulder. And so I kind of stepped back away from her. And as I did that, at the same time, something stepped in front of me. I didn't see it, but I could smell rotten flesh. And I've never smelled rotten flesh before, but I can promise you, if you smell a human body rotting, you're going to know what you're smelling. It's just something, you just know what that is. And I remember how vulgar and how, it almost was angry feeling the stench. And I stepped back. I mean, it was shocking. It was that strong. And then it went in front of her and she jumped back. And I said, "You smell it?" And she said, "Yes." And nobody else did. And then it came back to me again. And I'm like, motherfucker, this is getting worse, dude. So I backed up a ways. And then after probably about a minute or so, it seemed to fade away. I don't know where it went. But I thought it was interesting that it only showed itself. It only brought that stench to she and I. And about that time, the attorney just disappeared. Nobody knew where he went. He didn't say goodbye. He just left, and he smelled the same as whatever was standing in front of me. So they're going through the bedrooms, and they're putting the crosses on stuff and, saying prayers. And I thought it was interesting. The priest says to everybody, "What do you see? What do you hear? And what do you feel?" And I'm thinking to myself, are you asking what your psychic abilities are telling you? These are gifts from God, but in that scenario with that group, if you're psychic, they felt that was devil's work. But I thought it was interesting that they were asking each other what they were seeing, hearing, and feeling, and they're using their psychic abilities. And they weren't wrong. So Sandra Grace was there pointing out different things, and they're all like, yeah, there's a lot of heavy energy right here, and doing stuff. So we get down the hallway into the back bedroom, and there was an energy in the corner of the room that Sandra Grace had pointed out. And everybody there started saying, "Yeah, I feel it now too." And so they did some prayers and stuff like that. And honestly, I'd love to say there was this fire and brimstone, but it wasn't. It was just eerie. It was quiet because the house has never been that quiet. I hadn't seen the house that quiet in a long time. When I had, at this point, I was preparing the house to sell it. There was a bathroom that I was redoing. There was around the swimming pool was getting finished. I was building this gazebo. This was about the time, if you lived in Virginia Beach, when that man went down and killed all the people at the courthouse. Well, I thought it was bizarre that the man that killed those people had come to inspect the property at my house like about 6 weeks before then. So this is that time period. I don't know if any of that's connected, but it's just, it is what it is. That's the time period. And so these contractors were in my home, and when they would be in the bathroom, they would turn the fan on and close the door because they said they could hear things banging on the walls. They could hear voices, and they're like, "We don't want to hear it. We're just doing our work." And everything took fucking forever to get done. I mean, this one bathroom just took forever. So finally, that all got completed, but the contractors were not there, obviously, that day when we're doing this. So we're in the back bedroom, and we're putting the crosses on things and doing the prayers, and they're holding hands and doing certain prayers and reading stuff out of the Bible. And I just kind of stood off to the side because that wasn't my cup of tea. I don't know what the fuck they were doing. And we go downstairs afterwards, and I don't know, this from the time they got there to the time they left was every bit of 2 hours. So we'd been in the house a while. And they opened every drawer, looking through all the books and looking for demonic stuff. And there wasn't any demonic stuff there. There just wasn't. But we go outside, and they're all shaking each other's hand. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is great." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, what are we going to do next? And he says, well, what do you mean? I said, it's not fixed. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's fixed. It's fixed. The fuck it wasn't, man. I could look in the house and I could see shit moving around. But it wasn't fixed. And so we talked for a little bit longer, and it's bizarre. I don't even remember them leaving. It's just like they were gone. But it's also been a couple years, but I just don't remember them leaving. And I remember sitting there in the front yard, and I do remember the last car. I remember hearing it pull down the road. And where the house was, it's on like a little peninsula. There's 6 or 8 houses there, acre lots each. So it's easy to be alone because not everybody's ever going to be outside. So I was outside. The neighbors knew this stuff was going on. So they all had their windows and doors and curtains shut because they didn't believe it, but they sure as hell closed all the doors and stuff and didn't come out when this stuff was going on. But I remember feeling so alone. And I sat down right there in the driveway. Kennedy was in the camper. I didn't let her come in the house. And so she was at the camper at the KOA. She wasn't there. And I remember just sitting there thinking to myself, I'm running out of time. The priest couldn't fix the house. This was supposed to be the guy. This was the guy. And I was thinking about my kids and what's this going to look like? How am I going to take my life? That's what I was thinking about. Because if the medicine woman wasn't able to fix it, there was no more alternatives. There was nothing else to do. There was nowhere else to go. I had probably 30, 40 hours worth of phone calls by that point, going to churches, doing all kinds of stuff. And the last resort was the medicine woman. And I still had, I think, about a month before that happened. Because you got to remember, we didn't go up and do that with the medicine woman until early September. So this was probably first week of August, maybe, something like that. There was, I just remember the desperation. I just remember being so desperate for help and not understanding what's going on. Not realizing that I had these gifts that were turned on. All I knew is I could see things, I could hear things, I could feel things. Things were crawling in me, things were crawling on me. I could touch shit and tell you who was touching it and playing with it. I could hold a fucking bowl that had fruit and I can taste the fruit. That isn't my life. You know, I did not understand that concept. And I was by myself. I had everything and I had nothing. I mean, money-wise, I was making a lot of money. I was broken from this relationship. I was broken from the relationship before that. I was broken from the relationship before that. I'm struggling with this back pain, having these surgeries that seemingly weren't working. And I didn't know what to do. I'll be really glad when this part of the podcast is over. Because the next episodes, when we get to them, are about the spiritual awakening part. But I'll be glad when these parts are over. Because this has been difficult for me. And the honest answer is, Andrea is on vacation. But she's not working with me because we had a disagreement and I handled it poorly. And I asked her to terminate our partnership. That's why she's not here. because some things came up, and I hate using the word triggered, but some things that came up that triggered me, or, that little boy, that little Wesley that had some things that were unhealed ran away. And, when I said I was going to do this show, I said, I'm going to be real. And that's the real answer. Is I fucked my friend over. That's what happened. She needed me, and I turned my back on her. And you know what? She never did that to me. Not one time. Because I believed something, and I was wrong, and I was scared, and I was worried about some things, and I'm not going to go into details, that's personal, but the answer is I acted poorly, and I didn't step into my power, honor her, respect her, and she doesn't want to do the show with me anymore, even though I've asked her to. And I can appreciate that. So we're working on our friendship. We're talking. But she doesn't want to do the projects with me. And why should she? Why would she want to? I don't blame her. So everything happens for a reason, right? And she and I have talked about that. I'm like, we're fucking healers here. We need to heal this stuff if you're willing, whether or not we partner together anymore or not. My friendship is important. She's important to me. And what we went through needed to happen, because if we're on a soul contract, which we've talked about, that was going to happen. And she said she knew we were going to have a blow up over some things. And I agreed with her. I knew we would. And so at one level, I'm grateful we did, because it showed some things to me that still needed to be healed, that I still hadn't healed, and I'm working on at a deep level. Some things for her showed up, and I think our friendship's going to be better than it ever has before. I got to have, I met her before she went out of town, and I hadn't seen her at that point in probably 3 weeks. So that's why the show has not been up, because I'm doing it by myself now. And there's no intro to this. There's not going to be an outro, because Wes has to figure that stuff out. So I'm like, I'm going to record because it's time to. I'm going to be real. I'm going to apologize, Andrea. I'm sorry. I've apologized already, but I'm sorry. And I love you very much. But I believe we will continue to do our stuff together. Worst case, we were talking about doing the book still. And, but that's what this show is about, is how life happens for you and not to you. And whether she's here or not, if she leaves or we don't hang out anymore, it's supposed to be there, where sometimes people come in for a season. Now, I would like that season a lot of times to be there a really, really long time. But most of the time it doesn't. Like my last relationship that ended last year. Fuck, that was painful. But I am so grateful for being broken at such a deep level with this woman, because she showed me all the things that I had to work on. And the reality is, had I chosen me and respected me, I never would have gotten hurt like that. But I needed to be hurt because I wasn't loving myself enough. I wasn't respecting myself enough. I stayed well past the expiration date of that relationship, knowingly and willingly doing it, waiting for crumbs to be love bombed and all the bullshit that's going on, so I can learn what that's about, so I can see what's going on. And I am not blaming her. I want to tell her thank you for loving me so much that you fucking broke me. Because instead of turning to sex and new relationships and alcohol and drugs and anger and manipulation and whatever, I stayed present in my body. I did the hard work. I looked at where I have cracks in me that need to be fixed, where I was liable for my side, and I made an amends. Now, that might not have been heard by her, but that's fucking fine. I cleaned my side of the street, and I'm cleaning my side of the street with Andrea. And you know what? I'm going to make mistakes in the future, and I'm going to clean that side of the street too. And it's irrelevant if that person sees it, hears it, appreciates it. It's my journey to heal me. It's my journey to raise my vibration, so every step I take raises my vibration. Every breath I take heals me, and together we heal the world when Jesus flows through me. And that's what I do. And that's what I'm going to do. So if I have to do this podcast and do all these programs myself, I am going to do it because I know Andrea is going to love me and support me from a distance, because she's told me so many times who the fuck I am when I couldn't see it. Well, I see who I am because of her, and I am grateful. So maybe I'll do the video podcast when I'm not crying. So, we converted this back bedroom in my house, and I got these these ugly fucking curtains on the walls, trying to get the echo down and figuring out all the stuff. And I don't know. It's just hard to be in here recording this because this is the first one without her. So I'm sitting there. By myself, just trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And if Andrea is here, I'd be like, hey, Andrea, guess what I did next? And she'd be like, I don't know. What'd you do next, Wes? And I'd say, I got up and I stepped forward. I'm like, okay. Okay. The Germans didn't name Marines devil dogs during World War I for nothing. It's because we're violent, we're aggressive, and we don't fucking stop. And I was violent, aggressive, and I wasn't going to stop. These days, I'm trying not to be that person anymore. But I'm like, fuck it. I got up, looked around, I was like, fuck you, motherfuckers. I fucking, I'm like, fuck you. Just fuck you. So I closed up that house, got my car, and I left. I think I might have played with my chickens for a few minutes. Sandra Grace actually ended up helping relocate them to the eastern shore to these ladies, took my birds, which was nice. But I got in my car and I left. And I'm like, you know what? There's tomorrow. Because I thought about ending it that day. Like a lot of days. And I said, I'm not going to do that today. I'll do that tomorrow. Then the next day I said, I'm not going to do this today. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Then the next day I'll do it tomorrow until the feeling went away. Because a friend of mine Joe told me a long time ago that taking your own life is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I remembered that. And I'm like, I don't have it in my makeup to do this. And honestly, more than anything, I was scared. I'm like, what if they take me to hell at that point? Those fuckers are right there. And I am so grateful that I did not. I am so grateful that I stayed. I am so grateful for this podcast, and I'm so grateful for the listeners. And I hope I'm making I hope you're enjoying the show because it's painful as fuck for me, but I know it's making a difference. I had somebody call me just 10 minutes ago, literally saying, hey, I listened to the podcast. I haven't listened to all of it, but I listened to parts of it. And you helped us clear a demonic energy out of my sister's house. We've got these issues going on. What do you think we should do? So I told her, this week alone, I've cleared 7 houses. I don't know why I have this ability to do this, but I can do it from my kitchen table. I don't have to go to the house. I can see it. I can grab it, pull it out, and send it to the foot of Jesus. And I don't know. It's kind of payback. I enjoy it a little bit, but I do that a lot these days. So I got contacted, I don't know, a couple weeks ago from these young ladies that own a place called Space Holistic Services. They're in Virginia Beach, and it's a co-working space for healers. You can go in there and rent the space and do whatever you're doing, meditations, healings, whatever. And so we're talking, it's a new business, and they're like, well, could you come here and would you do something to help promote us? And I'm like, you know what? Not only am I going to do that, we're going to do it for free. And I don't know if they asked me to do it for free or not, but we agreed on I was going to do it for free. So I did one last week, and I'm doing one this Tuesday coming up. And so I think there were 7 or 8 ladies in the room, and we were teaching people how to connect your crystals and stones to your heart. So if you have that, you can connect that to your heart and make it your crystal or your stone. It's really cool to feel. And one of the ladies' names was the first name of the girl that I dated last year. And, well, it's not a girl, she's a woman. The woman that was in the room looked like my ex-mother-in-law. So I told her, I said, thank you for helping me heal things that still, when I seen her, that made me feel a certain kind of way, right? Then when she said her name, I said, of course you've got that first name. And so she was the last one to go. I was going to do a little hands-on healing for everybody as a little just bonus, just to help everybody out. And as I said her name, it was weird. It was almost like it echoed through the room. But the chair across the room goes flying off the wall onto the floor. So whatever was attached to her was pissed that she was getting up to see me. So I cut and removed that off. And it's fun doing this work and watching these people's lives change when Jesus and I connect and help these people. It's just beautiful. I love it. I love it a lot. And so I guess what we have coming up on the show next, we still have after the next episode is going to be after Lakota did the rebirthing ceremony. There was 21 days. There was a 21-day waiting period that I had to wait, and that's what's going to be up next. So that is going to be the next episode that I do. I would love to see I have this cool outro music going out right now. I do not. I'm going to figure that out. But I want to say thank you for plugging into the show. Make sure you plug into Andrea _abundant_universe. How good it can get as her podcast is very, very good. You know, the first person she had on her podcast, man, that dude is badass. So you should listen to it. So thanks for plugging in the show. I'll see you real soon. And don't forget, today is the day that you become the person that you're supposed to be. Today's the day that you can heal that fast. You can shift the energy that's going on with you. If you're sad, if you're miserable, if you're broken, trust me, I've been there. Get up off the sofa. Move that energy. And you know what's really, really helped me? I've been doing cold plunges lately. I don't know how to explain how that makes me feel, but it changes things in my chemistry in my brain, and I'm able to move forward. So if you're struggling, If you're miserable, if you're not where you want to be, good. Because you know what? You ain't going to be there forever. And you can start moving forward right this fucking second. If I can do it, you can do it. Just know this. You're gifted. You're loved. You're beautiful. You're needed. You have everything that you need to be the person you're supposed to be, even if you have a history in a past that you don't like, even if you're in active addiction, even if you're in a bad place. No worries. God didn't put you there if you weren't supposed to be there. And God didn't put it on your plate if you weren't strong enough to do the work, right? I talked to a friend the other day. He said, man, I'm seeing all these things. All these things are going on. It's really crazy. And I'm like, brother, you're going into your spiritual awakening. God is calling you to the table. And I believe if you're listening to my podcast, God is calling you to the table. I love you guys. I appreciate you. And I'll see you real soon.